Hello and welcome to Post Sports Live Veterans Day edition. Special shout out and thanks to all the military men and women serving in the United States and around the globe for helping to keep us safe. Helping to keep me safe today, at least for during today's program, is this distinguished panel. To my left, Dan Steinberg, the DC Sports Blog, Washington Post sports columnist Mike Wise, and the debut of Des Bieler, the early lead blogger. Des, welcome to the set. Thank you so much for coming today.
Hey, thanks. Speaking of Veterans Day, I feel like Admiral Stockdale all of a sudden. Who am I? Why am I here?
Well, you are the commissioner, by the way, of the Washington Post Sports Department Optimator Fantasy League. So,
I am.
And there are a lot of us that are 5-5, which tells me, you know what? There's parity. A lot of great fantasy minds going head-to-head each week, knocking each other down all the time, right?
There is parity. There's also good fortune, mostly by your team, which I think is kind of lousy. But you're 5-5. You're in it. You're not scoring a lot, but you're
coaching them up. Coaching them up.
Your defense is impregnable. It's amazing.
And Mike, I know you missed me talking about PPR on the radio show. That was one of the highlights. Was it not?
Yeah, Gino. The thing I've learned about fantasy leagues over the years, no one cares about anybody but their team. So right now we are losing the audience. But go ahead.
Right. Well, no, but Dan, you went to Vegas. How was that?
It's okay. There wasn't much of an audience.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I had a great time in Vegas. My money loved it so much that I decided to stay there.
Okay.
Without me.
Well, home dogs. We know that. Home dogs always, right? Okay. Well, I need to tell the viewers what we're talking about today. The rundown. We'll start off with the Redskins off the top, coming off the bye. We'll get to some national NFL games of interest. After that, the Wizards starting 5-2. Then we get to the Caps, who are looking to win their third straight after a rough patch. And then, of course, 4 days until college basketball tip-off, so we will discuss which local teams we're looking at toward the NCAA tournament. But off the top, it's Robert Griffin III and the Skins coming off a bye, playing the 1-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, by the way, now have Josh McCown back at quarterback. I'll start with you, Des. What are you looking for coming off the bye for this team going forward this week? And then, the Bucs present some matchup problems, I think, but I guess the most important thing is Robert Griffin III is presumably healthy, right? So what are you looking for in that game from him?
I look for good things. I think it's an excellent matchup for the Redskins to come out of their bye against. The Bucs are horrendous on defense. I thought the Redskins' offense showed quite a bit in the game against the Vikings. They kind of stumbled a little bit. The defense gave up some big plays, but I think it's as good a matchup as you could hope for coming out of the bye. And I definitely look for Robert Griffin to improve and keep playing better. He's going to become more acclimated in Jay Gruden's offense. I think one thing he has to avoid is holding on to the ball too long, but I think that'll come with more acclimation to the offense, more getting the ball out quicker, making reads quicker, understanding where the ball's got to go to, and not taking sacks. And obviously, he's blessed with a fantastic receiving core, and I definitely look for them to light it up against the Bucs, who can't stop anybody.
Mike, we know a couple years ago the Skins went on a run at the end of the season to go to the playoffs. They played a team that they, on paper, should win. What are you looking for out of this weekend?
I just want Robert Griffin III to hold the locker room together, Gino. That's paramount. If this franchise can rally around this kid, this is ridiculous. They're 3-6. I think they finish 3-4. I don't see. I see them beating Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I think, in all seriousness, and you can't discount this, the field has been resodded during the bye week. I think that is important for Robert Griffin III not to end up in the hospital again. Hopefully.
Well, so what? Is that going to make him faster? Is it going to make?
No, but he can get his feet in the turf, and he doesn't have to go down in a heap of bones and cartilage.
Well, Steins, Deshaun Jackson talked about rallying around him and making sure that us in the media aren't taking anyone down in the locker room. Does that have any impact on this week's game at all?
I thought that his comments were interesting, what Deshaun Jackson said. It's obviously popular to hammer the media over the head right now, but he seemed to indicate that there were at least some guys who thought that maybe that wasn't the way to go, to switch from the winning quarterback in Colt McCoy to Robert Griffin III. I don't think there's any question that you start your franchise quarterback, that you have to figure out what you've got here, but the fact that there might have been some dissension in the locker room, that is kind of interesting. And we've gone back and forth on this Brent McHenry report, but obviously someone in the organization told her that there was a problem inside the locker room between Robert Griffin III and some teammates. I don't love anonymous sources, but that, on top of what Deshaun Jackson said, I think it's kind of interesting. And this has been years now.
I don't think we discount the report, but I will say this, that every locker room, when you go from starting to quarterback to backup and the backup wins, there's talk amongst the guys. Is there a sincere revolt? I don't believe so. Do I think there's some guys in that locker room that wondered why Colt McCoy didn't start Minnesota? Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Des, do you sense a division, or is it just all blather?
No, there's 53, 60 guys like hanging around the locker room at any given point. I mean, we know that Deshaun Jackson's kind of mouthy. Winning solves everything. I think they'll win the Bucs game, and everyone will be happy. We'll see going forward how that translates down the stretch. I mean, I don't see them ripping off a 7-0 finish to make the playoffs. But I mean, I think something like 4-3 finish is in sight. I mean, I really think this team is pretty decent.
Yeah.
They've underachieved in the first half, but I think not having Griffin has been a problem for them on the field.
Can we say that they've underachieved in the first half, but they have not underachieved the way Jay Gruden evidently believes they have by saying that they could be 7-2 right now? They couldn't really be 7-2 right now. They were not
if
close.
If everything went right, they could be.
Mike, let me ask you this. How many times have we seen in the Redskins' recent past, we're talking the last 2 decades, that they lose games like this that they should win? It happens all the time. They lose to teams that haven't won games before.
I mean,
would this be the same old skins if they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who clearly have nothing to play for except pride this year?
Yeah, I would. In fact, I think we should do a video journalist deal with going up to the ticket office before the games after that if they lose.
Yes.
Because I bet you can buy tickets the day of the game from the ticket office, and you could probably buy good ones.
I think the Redskins Tampa Bay game does have the cheapest tickets of any game in
Does
the
it?
NFL this week. Yeah.
Well, that would make sense, or any game that Jacksonville's involved in. Okay, let's move on to the rest of the NFL and games we're watching. Dez, you have the Lions and Cardinals.
I do.
Tell me why.
Well, it's on paper, at least record-wise, it's the best game of the week, right? You've got the team with the best record in the NFL, the surprising Arizona Cardinals. You've got the Detroit Lions at 7-2, sharing the second-best record in the NFL with the likes of the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Eagles. But I think it's an interesting matchup because you have two teams who have a lot to prove here. I mean, I think despite their records, everyone is not sold on them all. There's no reason to ever be sold on the Lions, and the Cardinals.
That's for certain.
And the Cardinals went through the Super Bowl was a while ago now. So and they just lost their quarterback, so I think both teams have a lot of question marks. But I think the team that wins this game will be in a fantastic position in terms of locking up at least one home game in the NFC playoffs.
Well, we know the Lions get Megatron back. That was huge last week. And Bruce Arians said they can win the Super Bowl with Drew Stanton. Do you believe him?
I believe that he said that. I think that's a stretch. Stanton is woefully inaccurate. I just can't see somebody who sprays the ball around like that leading a team to a Super Bowl win. But hey,
Mike, you're watching the Packers and Eagles. What's up with that game?
I think it's a preview of the NFC Championship. I don't believe in the Seahawks like some people do still.
Yeah.
And I still think they're going to be there, but I think this could genuinely be an NFC Championship matchup. And who doesn't want to see Aaron Rodgers pass for 7 touchdowns in the first quarter?
I would love that. But so you have faith in Mark Sanchez that he can get it done.
I don't have faith in him like I do Aaron Rodgers, but I do. But I think that there are systems that cater to certain quarterbacks, and it seems like Chip Kelly's caters to everybody lately.
Well, and it is actually notable that they've played as well as they have with LaShawn McCoy having done pretty much absolutely nothing this season. So if he gets started, Sanchez may not have to do a lot at all. So.
They plug in people now. Deshaun Jackson was the guy that I remember running back touchdowns a couple years ago. Now it's Sproles.
Yeah.
You just throw in a guy and suddenly Veteran Stadium, or no, not Veteran, Lincoln Financial Field is going crazy.
Well, yeah, they have alternating wide receivers too. One week it's Jeremy Maclin. This most recent week it was Jordan Matthews. So they got a lot of guys who can get it done. Dan, what game are you watching this weekend?
You guys, I think, maybe mentioned 4 of the NFC playoff teams. We go with the 5th, which is the sub-500 New Orleans Saints. Someone has to win the NFC South. It's probably going to be the Saints.
That division's bad.
Saints play the Bengals this week. You probably would have said those are 2 Super Bowl contenders at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And now both of them are kind of struggling to make the playoffs. I think the Bengals probably need to win this one to to keep on pace in the AFC North, which has 4 great teams now. And I think the Saints are still the favorites in the NFC South. Basically, I'm just trying to make an excuse for the fact that I bet on the Saints to win the Super Bowl.
Well, look, the Saints now have
You bet on the Saints? Yeah. How much did you put down?
16-1. I don't want to talk about
finances
here, but
that's
16-1.
That's a good bet.
That's a good long shot bet because now they have what they haven't had in a long time: a running game. Mark Ingram, 3 straight games of over 120 yards.
Are sports writers allowed to bet ethically?
I think Vegas it's legal. Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm going with for obvious reasons, the Colts and the Patriots. I mean, you have Brady versus Andrew Luck. That's all you need. That's enough said. I mean, see if the Colts are for real. They can beat a team that's won 3 titles.
The only reason you got to pick that game is because you picked
first. That's right, because I pick last every other time I've been on the show. So let's move on to the Wizards, guys. 5-2 start. Is that a glass half full situation or glass half empty? They didn't look good against Toronto. The teams they've beaten combined 8-20 record, but at the same time, They've started slow for so many years. We know one year they lost 12 in a row. So here they sit 5-2, having had the most back-to-backs of any team, the most road games of any team. Now they've got a 4-game homestand coming up, starting with the Pistons on Wednesday. Mike, I'll start with you. What do you think? Is it a glass half full or half empty?
I mean, like, he's in the tank for the Saints until they lose it all. I'm in the tank for the Wizards until they win 50 games plus.
Yeah.
I believe that, look, there's a classic bad team in the NBA or mediocre team that goes and gets blown out on the road, which they did against Toronto, and then comes back the next night and wets the bed against whoever they play, even a bad team on the road. They almost lost to the Indiana Pacers, especially in the second half. They almost gave a lead, but they held on. They won a game that they were supposed to on the road, and so far they've held serve at home. Have they really played anybody? No, but they still don't even have their big guns back. So I like what they're doing right now, and I look at it. I still see this as. This is the year if you're going to get Cleveland. This is the year like you got Miami the first year that with LeBron. The fact that they got to the finals and Dallas beat them was a big deal because you knew that the Heat were going to get it together and win the next 2 or 3, and they did. And so I think this is the year that Cleveland takes a while to coalesce, and you need to make up as much ground as you can for home court advantage and everything going forward.
Dan, how much stock do you put in the 5-2 start?
I mean, I think they're exactly what they should be right now, but the fact that they should be 5-2 is kind of remarkable because how long has it been since we had a Wizards team that would have been favored in 5 out of their first 7 games? You know what I mean? So they haven't blown anyone away by any means, but like you said, they don't have Beal. They didn't have Pierce for that one half. Pierce is still obviously getting used to his new teammates. The first game, half the team was suspended. I think they've done exactly what they should, and again, the fact that they're 5-2, that's just remarkable. That we have a team that we're discussing whether they've underachieved at 5-2. I mean, for the Wizards, this is heaven.
It's uncharted territory, right?
I was thinking about this the other day, like that we sort of like deciding whether Paul Pierce was good or bad. Paul Pierce, a couple years ago, wouldn't even think about picking a team like the Wizards.
That's right. No,
and he did.
Never.
And so, so we're in a different. The fact that we're raising the bar for this team, I think, speaks volumes.
Des, are you looking at the 5-2 like great job, or
I'm with these guys.
Misleading record.
No, 5-2, it's fantastic. I mean, you look at the way they've started the past 9 years. I mean, they've been out of the gate horrendously slowly, in 0-12 in some cases.
Yeah.
I mean, 5-2 is awesome for them. You know, even if all you're saying is, well, they've beaten the dregs of the East, and they've beaten the Pistons, the Magic, the Knicks. Who are terrible apparently. But it's better to beat the dregs of the East, or than to beat the dregs of the East. Yeah, they've been the dregs of the East before, so now they're crushing those teams, and that's good. They're not scoring a ton, but I mean they're missing Bradley Beal, and when he gets back, and they're missing Webster. I mean, when those guys get back, that's a lot of shooting, that's a lot of offense. That's going to come back to the team, and they'll be better. I think it's as good a start as you could have hoped for. And getting blown out by the Raptors. I mean, it's a road game. I mean, the Raptors might be the second best team in the East when all's said and done, and they're probably no worse than the third or fourth. So, there's no great shame to lose to them, especially early in the season.
Well, I think what's interesting is that when Wizards fans anyhow talk about the East, they do talk about Cleveland, Chicago, and then they talk about the Wizards. And I think if you talk about the next 2 teams in that group, it'd probably be Miami and Toronto, which are the 2 teams they've lost to. So, I mean, it's probably a little bit early to be looking forward to playoff matchups, but I think Toronto and Miami are definitely teams that the Wizards could be seeing in the playoffs.
Well, they've really had a really rugged beginning of the season. No other team has had to go through their road schedule and the back-to-backs they have.
Rugged?
Yeah. No. In terms of the travel schedule, no. Not the level of the opponents, but they've been on the road more than other team, and they've had 3 back-to-backs in 7 games.
Take it easy,
come on,
Gino.
I don't care if you're playing for...
Gino, they weren't playing the 85, 86 Celtics on the road. They weren't playing the Bulls.
Yeah, they were.
They weren't playing Michael's Bulls on the road.
They're playing professional NBA teams. Okay, they're not. I'm just telling you, no other teams.
Donald Sloan took them to overtime.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. Donald Sloan took them to overtime.
Without Bradley Beal, without their second leading scorer. Okay,
I mean, it's not that they're fortunate to play the Pacers. They're in the East.
Yeah.
They're going to play the Pacers. They're going to play the Pistons. They're going to play the Bucks. But I mean, they're going to keep playing these bad East teams all season.
But they play the Pacers when they're particularly shorthanded. I mean,
well, the Wizards are short. I mean, they're beating the teams they should beat, and that's much progress.
It was a rugged start to the season.
Are you trying to turn this?
In terms of the travel schedule, it was. Okay, look, we're moving on to the other tenant.
You're trying to turn this into second take, aren't you?
We're moving to the other tenant, another tenant at Verizon Center, the Washington Capitals, who have won 2 straight, looking for a 3rd straight victory. They had that stretch there with OV didn't have a point in 5 games. Now they've kind of turned it around a little bit. So, Des, I'll ask you, what has been the difference, you think, for Alexander Ovechkin?
I mean, he's getting more shots on net.
Yeah.
He hasn't actually scored goals, which is supposedly his stock and trade. He has 1 goal since October 16th, but the points have been coming in the form of assists. But that speaks to his effect on the ice. He's actually playing pretty well. Some of those assists come on shots on net, like the game winner against Carolina in overtime, where Backstrom, Ovechkin shot a laser beam at the goalie, and it was staggered, and Backstrom was able to fire into an open net to win it. So, he's having a positive effect on the ice. I think during the 5-game drought, for whatever reason, he wasn't putting shots on net as much. It's the first time he's been pointless in 5 games in his career, which, if you think about it, is actually amazing. So he was probably due for something like that at some point.
I think that he Ovechkin topped Peter Bondra's all-time points record on an assist to Backstrom.
Yes.
Spoke volumes about
Number 400, by the way.
Not that he tried to.
Yeah.
But I think that it says a lot. I think that it says a lot about the evolution of this guy, and also I just think sometimes we fall asleep on him. We're looking at the greatest player in the history of this franchise. Sure. We're looking at one of the most dynamic players in the history of the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
And now I think it just comes down to, we can discuss regular season all we want. It comes down to whether he can get to that next level.
So, Dan, is it as simple for the Caps as they go how Ovi goes?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay. And I think that we talked. Now we're feeling more positive. People are feeling more positive because they won the last two. But they probably played worse in those two than they had in a bunch of those games that they lost. Yeah. Hockey kind of a random sport, but that game in Chicago, they get those 2 goals in like 47 seconds or whatever it was. They probably deserved to lose that game in Chicago. They were certainly outshot and outpuck possessioned by the Blackhawks for most of that game. And then they come home, and again they got the win. Great, they got the win, but they lost another second period lead. They've had this persistent issue for weeks now of not being able to hold on to the leads that they have, which was not necessarily an issue for them in the past. But no, I think there's far more going on with this team than just Ovechkin. And then one of the questions is going to be who Ovechkin's playing with on that first line. They've had Jay Beagle in there yesterday in practice. Jay Beagle, not the prototypical first line right wing exactly. So we'll see if they actually go with that.
Here's the stat that I was interested in.
Yeah.
They're 17th. They're 17th in shots. Essentially shutting the other team out from shots taken.
Yes.
But they're second in goals allowed. So the goalie play hadn't been that great.
No.
The goalie play has not been that great.
But there have been some nights when Holtby has been, and the team hasn't bailed him out. And other nights where he hasn't been so great.
But I think if you want to look around.
I think the idea with that stat though is that that's going to even out, and that the first one is more important than the second one, and that. Because they're denying shots, that's going to work.
They're putting a little more of a force field in front of the goal.
The Caps. Well, you mentioned this earlier, Dan, that they've rallied from a 2-goal deficit and they've blown 2 2-goal leads. So yeah, this is a very Jekyll and Hyde kind of team. But I think Mike, you're right. It's all about what happens in the postseason.
What do we do with Mike Green?
Yeah,
you guys like Mike Green? He's been playing better.
Maybe move him. It's possible to move him and get some value for him.
They'll never trade him.
Okay. Well, guys, we got 3 days. We got 3 days till tip-off of the college basketball season. Can't wait for it. Friday, got all our local teams in action this weekend. Of course, we're looking ahead to the NCAA tournament now because that's what we do even before the season started. We had 2 teams from there that made it last year, right? Well, 3: AU, Virginia, and GW. Daz, we'll start with you. What team are you looking at locally that has a chance to go to the NCAA this year again?
Yeah, well, if the standard is just making the tournament, I think UVA has got to be the team with the best chance. Just because they're almost certainly going to get an at-large bid. They're probably not going to win the ACC again like they did last year. They're almost certainly not going to win 30 games and have that sort of magical season. They lost Joe Harris, they lost Akil Mitchell, but they have a very deep team. Malcolm Brogdon is coming into his own. And then the ACC probably will send 6 to 8 teams to the tournament, and they'll almost certainly be one of them. So I think they're a lock.
Mike, are you looking at what? GW? They're loaded again? The Hoyas?
Dan will love this because every year in college basketball, and we both love college basketball, whatever local team is not doing well at home, we sort of expand our reach. So Virginia Tech, it just keeps going.
Oh, Tech with Buzz Williams.
We love VCU.
We love VCU. Oh, no. We are VCU. We are VCU when nobody else is in the
tournament. GW can give VCU a run this year.
Well, not only
get to Chapel Hill in like 4.5 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. So I think, I can't go south on GW.
Yeah.
I think Mike Lonergan has done a great job.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's lost 2 of his best players and his leadership, but he's got some young kids. Whether those young kids can get it together right away, I think the Atlantic 10 is probably going to get 4 bids this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got in. Virginia's a lock too. I just think it's a shock that, well, I guess last year neither Georgetown nor Maryland. The fact that they might both stay home for 2 seasons in a row, we'd have to go to the record books for that one, I think.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a shift of power in terms of the local basketball with GW moving ahead of Georgetown, Maryland. We'll see how long that lasts. But Dan, which one of those teams are you looking at?
I think that there's probably all these teams are going to make it. I think Virginia obviously is going to make it. I think GW should make it. I think Georgetown probably will make it. I think they've gone 4 years in a row before last year.
Yeah.
They've got the big man back, Josh Smith, who you wrote about today.
Right.
They've got the first team All-Met from last year from St. John's, the point guard. Right?
Yeah, Trey Campbell. And they have the preseason player of the year in the Big East, Devontae Smith-Rivera, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've got the early season schedule is tough, but
they have Son of Morning, Alonzo.
They have the Trey Morning, right? And the Big East is not the old Big East. I mean, there's Villanova.
Is Alonzo's kid any good?
He's an energy player like Patrick Ewing Jr. Just to kind of, could you imagine going on that campus and being a basketball player on the same campus as Alonzo Mourning and Patrick Ewing? That's how much pressure is that? I mean, that's almost impossible to handle. I mean, you can never live up to what your dad has done.
Can I have one quick shout out to American University?
Which is
going to be the preseason Patriot League favorite, I believe.
Yes,
they've got almost everyone back there. I think they lost their center.
Mike Brennan, former assistant to John Thompson III, done a fantastic job.
That won the conference last year.
I think you look at this whole thing as a bad thing. You go to campus and you say, "I'm Zoe's son." Holla! People are into, you're meeting girls, you're getting better grades.
Right.
I'm kidding.
And then his dad sits in the stands during games and intimidates the heck out of the other team. I mean, it can only be good things for Georgetown.
But we're not mentioning Maryland.
And his own son.
We're not mentioning Maryland. No. What's happened to that program? I mean, Evan Sumatra is obviously one of the best players. Is hurt. They got a bunch of guys who transferred. Do they have any hope this year?
My sense would be because of those things and because of the new conference, they don't have a lot of hope. But I thought the same thing about the football team, and they proved me wrong. So.
2 words: Melo Trimble.
Melo Trimble.
I think he's going to be a special player, and I'm not just saying that because Kevin,
he was All-Met Player of the Year, as a matter of fact. Yeah,
Kevin, the Verizon Center security guard. I'm not just saying that because it's his nephew. I think that he's been telling me about this kid for 3 years now. The fact that Mark Turgeon got him, I think, is important. I think he's going to have to do more than he should as a freshman coming in because of all the players they've lost. But, Mark Turgeon, it's funny. Mark Turgeon, even though he's got a longer contract, you could make an argument that he's more on the hot seat now than Randy Edsall.
Well, okay, guys, we'll have all season to discuss this, but thanks for being on the program today. Des,
it went by
Mike,
in a flash.
It did, didn't Dan? It's been great.
Fun
Any of you guys
show.
go to the Veterans Day concert, the Concert for Valor? It's a great show. Springsteen, Rihanna, Metallica. I mean, there's something for everybody. Carrie Underwood. I want to go see Bruce.
Some of us have to work.
It's kind of like,
Come on, work's overrated.
You catch the boss in the mosh pit. I'm going to watch HD at home.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll do this again soon, okay?
Thank you.
I'm Gene Wong. Thanks for tuning in to Post Sports Live. We'll see you next time.